What up, gamers? This is the East Wind, or EW for short if you want to abbreviate it. Whatever. You're now in tune to another episode of Winds of the Far East. And today's episode deals with the topic of console wars. And this is the truth. So let's jump right into it. First off, there's a misconception among gamers that the PC is a part of the console wars, when it's not. The PC, at its core, was originally created to compute data. You can't dispute this. PC gamers can't dispute this. By upgrading your PC out of the box and turning it into a gaming PC, it doesn't change that fact. So there's no bridge, there's no correlation between a gaming PC and a video game console. Games are not the bridge. It has to be a tech bridge. So in this case, from the PC side, if upgrading your PC into a gaming PC, notice, gaming, we can leave gaming in it. Gaming PC, the latter is still PC, personal computer, or gaming computer. You can't lose the latter. You can't just say it's a gaming device like you can for consoles, because that's all they can do is play games. Aside from, PlayStation 3, it can play music and video, but that's it. That's just a few bonus features. Its sole purpose is video games. For the PC, or a gaming PC, by upgrading it to that, you do not nullify its ability to run business applications. And by business applications, I mean Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, and any other business application that is used in our society as a whole on a device that is a business tool in its full capacity. Any console gamer that feels that a console is greater or superior to a PC is delusional. A computer is a multitasking piece of hardware. You can burn DVDs, you can burn CDs, you can emulate just about anything. Whatever there's an emulator for, that computer can do that. It has so many advantages over the console that who would even think to compare them? Really? Why compare something that's inferior? Consoles are inferior. And I'm a console gamer. I'm a console gamer, a PlayStation gamer. I'm just putting this out there. I'm a PlayStation gamer. 100%. But I have logic. Consoles are inferior. There's nothing wrong with that for me. I don't care. But the PC, period, is just a more powerful piece of hardware. Besides, like I said, out of the box, they can upgrade their PC to give it more power. You can't do that with a console. So my point this proves my point. If by upgrading your PC out of the box into a gaming PC nullified its ability to run business applications or to do anything else, then that would be a bridge from the PC to the console. That bridge doesn't exist. From the console side, if you could upgrade your console to give it more power, that would be a bridge from the console to the PC. Then you could compare and contrast a console versus a PC. At the start of the 8th generation, there were a number of people comparing PS4 specs to Xbox One specs. I know PC gamers, 100% PC gamers, were laughing. Like that's what we do. And that's something I would expect PC gamers to do. I'm pretty sure on PC forums they're comparing specs. Like my PC has this. My PC has that. Why do that for a video game console, a home entertainment console? Nintendo got it right. This is the thing. Video game consoles are home entertainment devices. I'm going to say maybe 7 out of 10. 7 times out of 10. A PC in the home of somebody is used as a business tool. I know it's a lot of PC gamers, but I'm going to say that in homes, the PC is used more for business related affairs than it is playing PC games. Or it's not an actual gaming PC, like upgraded to be, quote, a gaming PC. It's just a regular PC that somebody plays games on. Or a basic PC out of the box. It still is not, there's no correlation between PC and the console. Okay, just getting that out the way. PC, as far as gaming goes, is in an entirely different category. Back in the 5th and 6th generation, gamers who was subscribed to it, or you may have just picked up a few copies of it. GamePro magazine. Not once in that magazine did they compare PC gaming to console gaming. When they talked about console wars, it was the PS2 versus Xbox versus GameCube, or the PS3 versus Xbox 360 versus the Wii. Because it's pointless. Common sense will tell you that the PC has got video game consoles. There's no question. There's no debating it. And it's PC gamers, the 100% PC gamers, they don't care about video game consoles at all. They're on PC forums comparing other specs, talking about PC related games and anything else that goes along with that. On the low end of the PC gaming spectrum, because there is a low end over there, you had PC gamers that come to the console forums. I've seen it on PlayStation forums, where a PC gamer just came to the forum and just came out and said, why do you play on video game consoles? Like, PC is better. Why are you in a video game forum? That's what the majority of the replies was asking. Like, why are you here? Because it's evident that the PC is a stronger, a more powerful piece of hardware. Even though I know consoles, power-wise, are nowhere near a PC, or will they ever be, I prefer, my personal preference, is a video game console. I'm more comfortable with the controller. You know, that's just a personal thing for me. Just like PC gamers will tell you they can, you know, they use the keyboard and mouse. It's a personal preference thing, man. I'm not going to say it's an advantage or disadvantage, because it's not. That's just a personal preference. But hardware, tech-wise, there's no, you know, you can't have a preference for that. It's fact. So with that being said, PC gamers, y'all do y'all thing, man. Console gamers, if you feel like you have your console is better than PC and all of that, stop, man. Just stop. And to the PC gamers that contradict themselves, that say they a PC gamer and then they turn around and try to advocate a console that they own, you're contradicting yourself. Are you really a PC gamer or what? You can't have it both ways. I'm a console gamer. I've played on the PC. I still prefer console. And the PC does have you can customize your experience. It's just like Blackbuster said, man. Shout out to Blackbuster, man. But how he put it, it's perfect. Blackbuster critic said, personal computer, you can personalize your experience. And that's true. Because I've played emulators on the computer and I've used the controller. So if you really want to do that, you can do it. But a controller on the PC, it doesn't work with all the games. It works with some. And I'm not talking about, mainly I wanted to use the controller on an MMO. I'll just go ahead and put that out there. I wanted to use a controller on an MMO because I don't like the keyboard. And again, that's my personal preference. But mapping, because you can do that. You can map the keyboard buttons to the controller. But mapping those buttons to the controller, it didn't work the way I wanted to. The game, it was a disaster. So, you know, had it worked, I couldn't say this. Like, I couldn't say anything. You know, PC gamers might consider that negative. I guess it is kind of negative because I'm saying that hooking the controller up to a PC doesn't work with all games. So it does have a limitation in that aspect. But otherwise, it's got more advantages than it's got disadvantages. Now that that's out the way, let's go on with this the true console wars. And current, I'm talking current generation. We all know the history. Well, let's talk about the history real quick, which is the Nintendo Sega, where this originates from. The reason the console wars came about is exclusive games. A lot of people think console wars it's more negative than it is positive. It's promoted as a negative term, or it's looked at it in a negative light, when in reality it's actually a positive. And I'll get to all that in a minute. But it originated with Nintendo and Sega. Why or how? Why is because Mario and Sonic. First party games, but they were exclusive. The only way you could play them is on each one specific console. For Mario, Nintendo. For Sega, for Sonic, Sega. It was rare that somebody owned both. You had to make a choice. And that's what console wars really come down to. Make a choice. What's the experience you wanna? What type of gaming experience do you want to experience the most? And look for said console that gives you that experience, or that offers those type of games that give you that type of experience you want. Don't try to be all over the board. But in the end, it is your own choice to do what you want to do. I can't tell you what to do. Neither can anyone else. The same applies to everybody, really. But this is how problems arise inside the console wars. Because the console wars, on the surface, it seems like it's a gamer. It's just a bunch of gamers just talking bad about each other back and forth, when that's not the case. In reality, console wars is actually the corporations trying to one up each other. So it is a Sony versus Microsoft versus Nintendo, PlayStation versus Xbox versus Nintendo, or the Wii in this case, Wii-U. So this current generation's console war consists of the Wii U, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Now, what exactly does that mean for the gamers who bought these systems? Well, if I just said that console wars really comes down to the games, the exclusive games, not timed exclusive. I don't know who came up with that term, but it's stupid. Because really, all they should just say is it's going to be released early on this system, but it's a multi-platform game, essentially. What this means for those gamers who purchase current generation consoles is that technically there is no console war. Well, why you say that? You have no exclusive games. People's gonna argue first party. Are you serious? First party games from the 7th to 8th gen are nowhere near third party exclusives from the 5th and 6th generation. The quality of game, the innovation of the game. I can name one game from the 6th generation that a single game from the 7th or 8th generation haven't got a single thing on it. And that's Okami. PlayStation 2. What appeared to be a simple game, yet so innovative in the way it's played that you haven't seen anything like it since. I don't want to hear about Okami HD, the remaster. No. Okami, when it first came out, was a new IP, Clover Studios, Capcom, third party exclusive. That's really what this comes down to, third party exclusive games. They're needed. People always, I see on forums just glancing over them like, yeah, everybody needs to play all the same type of games. No. This is if you don't hear anything else I say, hear this. Currently, Deep Down is an exclusive for PlayStation 4. mainly because I believe Sony funded it, or they were working. Capcom was working with Sony on the game, so it's exclusive for PlayStation 4. Doesn't interest me. I mean, some people were interested from the Xbox side when they were asking, is it coming to Xbox or whatever. But hey, I'm not one of those people. The Titanfall joint exclusive to Xbox. They had got Dead Rising 3. So they got 2 exclusives. The Rise joint, 3 exclusives. If they got more, whatever. That's not the point. Is they got some exclusives. PlayStation 4 at this point, as far as I know, deep down is the only exclusive they got. We're talking about video game console, by the way. So if it's on PC, I'm talking about for the console war. For the console war, the world, whatever. Just strictly consoles. Because like I said, PC is not a part of the console wars. But you on the opposite end, you have games like Metal Gear Solid, Ground Zeroes, multi-platform. It's on both PlayStation 4. Matter of fact, it's on all 4 from the 7th and 8th generation. It's on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360. The Murder Soul Suspect joint, third party, on all platforms. Or it's at least on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I don't know if it's on PS3 and Xbox 360. The Division, multi-platform. The gaming landscape is starting to turn into that. So if the gaming landscape is starting to turn into every game is multi-platform, or those people that say all games should be available on all consoles, what as a gamer are you getting out of playing video games? Don't say fun, because even though fun is what is used, like if the game is fun, that's all that matters to me. It's the experience of your chosen console that makes you, or that makes the gaming industry as a whole, as far as gamers go. I mean, just look at the 5th and 6th generation. You had Nintendo 64, Nintendo GameCube. Between the two, it had its share of third party exclusive games. That was a selling point for the console. The same with PlayStation and PlayStation 2. It had its third party exclusive games that made the experience between the two. Gave gamers a variety of choices. If all the consoles offer the same experience, number one, what's the point in buying multiple consoles? It used to be in the 5th and 6th generation, you could justify owning the rival console because you could say, I couldn't play it if I didn't have a GameCube, if I didn't have a Nintendo 64, or from their side, if I didn't have a PlayStation, I wouldn't be able to play it. But back in the 5th and 6th generation, there were just straight uncut Nintendo fans and PlayStation fans. They only played PlayStation. They only played Nintendo. But me, like I said, I'm a PlayStation gamer. I think we're all multi-console owners. In terms of, for me, I own all the PlayStation. Every PlayStation from the 5th generation. So, PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. And it was on the strength of, from PlayStation 1, the experience I got from that, I wanted that same experience going into PlayStation 2. And I got that. So on the strength of PlayStation 2, I went to PlayStation 3, but that experience wasn't there. So, but you know, I got a few gems. It was a few gems on PlayStation 3, but nothing like PlayStation and PlayStation 2. It's just like they said, Nintendo for the 7th generation took and played the role of Sony, because they were the ones getting JRPGs. All the types of games that PlayStation and PlayStation 2 had got in the 5th and 6th generation. That aside, back to multi-console owners. This is one of two factors that feed the negative side of the console wars. Multi-console owners. Like I said, I think all of us as gamers, as console gamers, own multiple consoles. If you're a Nintendo fan, I'm pretty sure you own a 64, a GameCube, a Wii, and even a Wii U. As a PlayStation fan, you own a PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. If you have went on to get PlayStation 4, you own a PlayStation 4 too. Now, these people that own multiple rival, it's the key word here, rival consoles, meaning they own, for this current generation, they own a PlayStation 4, a Xbox One, and a Wii U. These people are the low end of the spectrum, just like I said for PC gamers, are a problem in the console wars as a whole. You have multi-rival console owners that don't promote that they have multi-rival consoles. Meaning when they go to a forum, they're not saying, yeah, I got all three. In which the low end of that spectrum of those multi-rival console owners are trying to convince those that don't have rival consoles to get them. Like, if you only play one console, you should get all three. Because if you don't, you're not a real gamer. Or you're not a gamer, period. What kind of mentality is that? What kind of logic is that? It could be somebody that owns one sole console for that current generation that's more of a gamer than the person that owns multiple rival consoles. So what they're talking about is irrelevant. The fact is fact, and I'm about to prove it with an audio clip here in a minute. The fact of the matter is, for these multi-rival console owners, is that they cannot remain neutral. There is no middle road for owning multiple rival consoles. So, current generation, if you own a PS4, a Xbox One, and a Wii U, at some point, it's always happened. You can go back, you can scan through plenty of forums where somebody will write my insert name of console is collecting dust. I haven't played it in I don't know how long. I play insert name of console more. That means they favor one console over the other, or others, if they have more than one. There is no balance. That's why I can't own another console. And the second thing which I'm going to talk about, which most people are probably saying now, is, oh, he's a fanboy. I am a fan, but I'm definitely not a fanboy because that definition is used out of context. There's another word for what fanboy is used as, the way we look at gaming today. And I'll get to that in a minute. But on this issue of multi-rival console owners unable to be neutral, which is a fact, because at some point they're going to favor one of the systems over the other, whether it be because it has a bigger gaming library or it just has more of their favorite games on it. The problem with this is these same people, which this is the low end of that spectrum of multi-rival console owners, because just like I just said, it's some of them that don't mention that they have all three. They don't care. They, you know, when they go to a forum or whatever, they just talk about whatever the topic is without trying to you know, influence somebody who doesn't have all three, or try to promote that you should have all three to be a gamer, to be considered a real gamer. So the problem with the low end of that spectrum is these people, like I said, they can't remain neutral. So if a topic pops up for PlayStation, they're in that PlayStation topic all out. Meaning they're acting like PlayStation is the only thing they play. You catch them on the opposite side in the Xbox topic. They going all out for Xbox. Like all they play is Xbox. You catch them on that other side. They for the Wii U or Wii. Well, current gen. Wii U. They all in for that. Like all they play is the Wii U. So you see the problem with that. You can't play all sides at all times. You can't be all things to all consoles. As I said before, it's called decision making. You pick a side and stick with it. It's like, an analogy for this is the game of soccer overseas. So what they would call football overseas. When these fans go to these football games, they don't sit on both sides of the stadium. You can't sit on both sides of the stadium. You pick a side, and that's it. You pick a team and you rock with it, good or bad. And that's not saying that you have to bash somebody else just because they only play one brand of console. Not at all. It's their choice. It's their choice to own multiple rival consoles. It's their money or their parents' money or whatever. So it's on them. But the fact of the matter is, when they come to the forums and try to influence people, then it becomes, it's like a virus that runs through the community. Because you have some young gamers that are influenced by this. Like, man, if I don't own all three, man, I'm not a real gamer. So they go out and buy all three. And in the end, it's just a repeating cycle. Those young gamers end up like the gamer that was, or the person that was saying if you don't own all three, you're not a real gamer. And it just keeps repeating. I ain't trying to influence anybody. I said I'm a PlayStation gamer. But at the same time, as somebody in the console wars, I'm not in it in a negative way, but I am in the console wars in terms of I support PlayStation up to PlayStation 3 because I have problems with PlayStation 4. So see right there, you can't call me a fanboy, which, like I said, is used out of context. I'll get to it in a minute. You can't claim that I'm that, because those type of people, they don't question anything about the brand. And I definitely question everything, because first of all, I want my money's worth. That's why I say I'm a gamer in the truest sense. And you could take it literally. Like, I want my money's worth for a game that I'm about to pay some money for, especially $59.99, where, you know, back in the 5th and 6th generation, another reason, I'm getting on that topic, but I'm gonna cover that. Another reason that era was so great was because you had different prices for different games. Even though the registered retail price was $49.99, or that, you know, that was basically the MSRP for that era. Games varied across the board from $19.99 brand new, $19.99, $29.99, $39.99. It's not like that. It wasn't like that for the 7th and 8th generation. Well, we're in the 8th generation, but it wasn't like that for the 7th generation. Every single game they was asking $59.99, and a good majority of the games that came out were not worth $59.99. That's another topic though. But yeah, for these multi-rival console owners, where they try to play all sides. For football overseas, they pick a side, rock with it. These fans are so passionate that they fight. And I'm not saying that, the violence aspect of it is not what I'm trying to get you to see here. It's the passion. Is that they're so passionate about their favorite team that they're willing to fight for them. They're willing to go against the referee if they feel that the referee made a bad call against their favorite team. And you can liken that to the uproar that was caused when the Xbox suits announced the DRM or those policies for Xbox One. Where gamers was just going off at the suits over at Xbox or Microsoft. So, and you know, they come out in spirit. I was listening to a podcast, I think a day ago. And the first beginning of the podcast, it was an Xbox fan. And he said that the console wars were like gaming racism. No, it's not like gaming racism. You can think of console wars as teams. You got Team PlayStation, Team Xbox, Team Wii-U. There's nothing wrong with that. That's competition. It's no different from the NBA, NFL, soccer, or football overseas. For everybody that claims competition is good, it doesn't really seem like it. Because they want to be on all teams. If competition is really good, if you make a bet on a sports team, if you dealing with a bookie and you betting money, do you think the bookie is going to let you bet on both teams? No, because if he let you bet on both teams, he's not going to make any money. So you only can bet on one team. Once again, it's called decision making. There's nothing wrong with playing other consoles. It's owning it and then trying to separate yourself from it because you own all three. You own all three. You own that console's rival and the other console's rival if you have all three. If it's just two, you own one of the console or the opposite of the console that you favor rival. So if you own a PS4, the rival is Xbox. You're going to favor one or the other. There is no equal love for both of them. I don't care what anybody says. So, speaking on that, like I said, here's proof to back up my claim that you can't be neutral if you are a multi-rival console owner. Now let's just listen to this clip of a Xbox, because I'm not gonna call you an Xbox. If you favor Xbox, you favor Xbox. But don't try to pretend that you're a fan of a rival console when you're really not. So let's listen to this excerpt.
Things first, I want to dispel some of the message that's been put out about me prior to the video. You did a preview video about, to set the video up, which is good, but you labeled me as an Xbot and all this other stuff, which I feel is the problem with the gaming conversation online through YouTube and the media, what have you. It's plenty of misconceptions, but I find it funny that you do that. I don't know why. You can explain that to me first, if you like. Like what makes you believe that I'm an Xbot and you have any right to just come out and try to label me?
Oh, well, we've had plenty of altercations before, previously, in Xbox Strong. I think that was where we first came across each other, right?
Right. I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm not coming from that angle. It's just, I'd like us to be able to have a clear gaming discussion without necessarily using the labels or trying to diminish each other's intelligence, because to me that takes away from the momentum that this generation actually could be. But that's why it may seem like I'm agitated or I come off a little kind of frustrated with that particular topic. Like, the gaming aspect of the hobby has been taking a second seat to the arguments and the the jabbing. Now it's all good to root for your favorite or to choose, but to knowingly take advantage of a certain audience, to me, I feel like that's I think that's what you're doing. And excuse me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to take away from your opinion, but it would be easy to do that because the PlayStation audience, which I am a PlayStation fan myself, not necessarily a diehard fan. I do buy PlayStation consoles. We could talk about that if you want, but I feel like that particular audience has had it rough for the 7th generation, and right now they're clamoring for any little piece of news. And there's
do you see my point? This person, this Xbox fan, basically says he is a PlayStation fan. Yet he follows up that statement because notice he says, I am a PlayStation fan. I play by. He switched it to buy PlayStation consoles. Which it doesn't matter if he played or bought a PlayStation console. I'm thinking the former. I'm thinking he played or plays it. His friend might have a PlayStation. So when he goes over his friend's house, he's played PlayStation. I'm not, it's a 50-50. He's iffy. He's sketchy on actually owning a PlayStation console. But let's just say, for argument's sake, he does own PlayStation consoles, plural. He said he was a fan. He follows the statement up by saying, I feel like those gamers had it rough the 7th generation. So he includes himself by saying he's a PlayStation fan, and then he excludes himself. Had to put emphasis on that. He excludes himself from that fan base and says those gamers had it rough 7th generation. Now, it's only so many PlayStation consoles you could own. Even so, the fact remains that PlayStation is the brand. So even if it was PlayStation or PlayStation 2, or PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, any mixture of the three, as a fan, you wouldn't say those. You would still include yourself. It's just like if I said, I'm a fan of Nintendo. Which I can't say I never was, because, or Sega either. I can't say that because I played Nintendo. I played Nintendo 64. I played Nintendo GameCube. I played Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast. I played some of the best games on those consoles. I'm a fan of the games on those consoles. I am a fan of the Dreamcast, Sega, the games on the Dreamcast. Fan of the games on Sega Saturn, 64, GameCube. So it's no way I would include myself in that and then exclude myself by saying those fans. It just so happens that the fifth and sixth generation, I no longer played Nintendo games, or was interested in the Nintendo console. The segue between the 5th and 6th generation for PlayStation, Sega recaptured my interest with the Dreamcast. Shenmue. Straight, just pure innovation for its time. They came out too early. That's what cost Sega the Dreamcast or a console in the market, because they came out too early. And when PlayStation 2 came out, people were taking the Dreamcast and trading it in to get the PlayStation 2. This was fact. You saw after PlayStation 2 came out, they had so many Dreamcasts that were turned in as a as trade-in credit to get a PlayStation 2. It was like, yo, does anybody have a Dreamcast left? But, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, if the Dreamcast had came out close to or around the same time PlayStation 2 had, maybe things would have been different. I mean, because they would have had some exclusive games that were hot, like Shenmue and Project Justice and, you know, all types, Skies of Arcadia. So they would have had joints, man, but, you know, we'll never know that. But let's play back what he says one more time.
I am a PlayStation fan myself, not necessarily a diehard fan. I do buy PlayStation consoles. We could talk about that if you...
Okay. He said not necessarily a diehard fan. It doesn't matter whether you're a diehard fan or a fan. Because in the end, it comes down to being a fan. Diehard fan would just mean that you just play PlayStation. Like in my case, I just play PlayStation from 5th, 6th, and the 7th generation. As mediocre as it was, as disappointing as it was for me, I just play PlayStation, or I just own PlayStation. It's not to say, come on, man, 5th and 6th generation, especially 6th generation, PlayStation 2, GameCube. I was playing Super Smash Bros. Melee. I was playing Mario Party. You know what I mean? I was playing that. But to own it is a different story because you're invested in that console. So, as a PlayStation only game, I'm 100% invested in PlayStation. I see everything about PlayStation clearly. Meaning, just like I just said, I don't have a PlayStation 4 because I got problems with PlayStation 4. So, for me to be able to say that, or for me to say that, means I'm questioning the brand, which a lot of these people don't do. A lot of these gamers don't do. A lot of these supporters of these video game console brands don't do. They're not thinking. All they see is the brand. And it's more to it than that. A lot of people will bring up for the multi-rival console ownership thing, like it's a waste of money. To which I agree. It is a waste of money. Especially currently. What I just told you about games being, third-party games being multi-platform. You could get the game on any platform. So why own all 3 platforms? Once again, people, first party. They're not equal to the third-party games that were in the 5th and 6th generation. I just told you Okami. But let me re-emphasize that. The reason why, like I said, the way it plays, you're basically a deity wolf that has these powers, or that has to go acquire these powers that allow you to take a brush, a celestial brush, and go in and make some flowers bloom here. Make it rain. Cause some wind to appear on screen. Just innovative ideas, man. Clover Studios, Capcom, which is now Platinum Games, man. Name one game from the 7th and 8th generation that equals that innovation. Just one. That's all you need. Man. But yeah, he says he's not a diehard fan. But nonetheless, you're a fan. So you shouldn't separate yourself, which he does right here.
You want, but I feel like that particular audience has had it rough for the 7th generation.
You see, he separated himself right then and there. So you're not a fan of PlayStation because you wouldn't do that. That particular audience, you just said you're a fan, so you still should include yourself. If he had said we, or yeah, that's the only way it would have worked. We had it rough, the 7th gen. And then to go on and say,
and right now they're clamoring for any little piece of news.
Clamoring for any little piece of news? I'm not clamoring for anything. I mean, if anything, right now, the biggest thing PlayStation 4 owners are talking about is the indie situation, which is, why is it so many indie games on PlayStation 4? Where are the AAA games? That's it. I don't see them talking about or clamoring for, like, this is the thing in that Xbox fan's case. He's not realizing that half, maybe more than half, of the current owners of PlayStation 4 are people that left Xbox. That's a fact. It worked the same way during the 7th generation, where Xbox 360 had games that you would have thought would have been on PlayStation 3. These are games like Infinite Undiscovery. What else did they have? Oh man, I can't think of. The Last Remnant. JRPGs. Third party. Exclusive. But they weren't there. So, and I've seen YouTubers, Zobi70. He said it himself, PlayStation. I could tell he's a PlayStation gamer. He said, for as much as he jokes, he has a lot of valid points. So, shout out to Zobi70. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting, this is like my first official broadcast. So, still shout out to him because he is a funny dude. And like I said, even though he does do the comedy thing, he has a lot of valid points. PlayStation 3 didn't have the games that a PlayStation gamer would have expected it to have. Like, the JRPGs weren't there. Like, somebody will argue that JRPGs were there. No, they weren't. A majority of the what these people would classify as JRPGs would be those games with an all-girl cast or all-female cast. That's not my thing, man. It's not my thing. I need a variety. It needs to be an assortment of genders, male and female. Tales of Graces, Tales of the Abyss, perfect example. Any Tales of game, they're mixing it up. So those Hyper Neptuna, that's not my thing. It's cool if that's your thing, but that's not my thing. And another thing was, turn-based, traditional. A lot of people. Final Fantasy 13 broke the Final Fantasy fan base. To me, I didn't consider it a Final Fantasy. But hey, if you liked it, cool. That's your own personal preference. Once again, but it just didn't live up to the legend of Final Fantasy 7, 8, 10. There was a lot of people that liked 10. Some people didn't like it. But even 12, Final Fantasy 12 was a good Final Fantasy. It wasn't turn-based. It was more like Vagrant Story, because the same dude made it. You know what I mean? So it was still a good Final Fantasy. The only problem I had with it was the espers was super weak. Like, compared to the GFs from Final Fantasy VIII, super weak, man. But that's something. Yeah, that's something else. It still ties in with console wars, but, you know, it's getting off topic, man. But yeah, I understand why Zobi70 said he left PlayStation and went to the Xbox. So, Zobi70 is my example of somebody leaving PlayStation going to the Xbox. I'm pretty sure it was multiple people that did that. First of all, PlayStation was late to the party. PlayStation 3 came out a year later than Xbox 360. So already Xbox 360, unlike the Dreamcast, they had a head start on PlayStation. And they had the genre of games that PlayStation was known for. So if, you know, you got tired of waiting, of course you're going to go out and get an Xbox 360 to get that experience. Like I said before, it's all about the experience the console offers you. Every console needs to offer a different experience for their install base or the transitioning install base. Whether, like, for example, PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4. It's 80 million plus owners of a PlayStation 3. A lot of people think just because PlayStation 4 sold 7 million plus whatever, however it's growing, consoles, that is a crazy achievement. Congratulations, PlayStation, on PlayStation 4, because that is that's good that you have people coming out and buying your console. But if it was so great as people claim, the install base, more than half of the install base of PlayStation 3 would have bought a PlayStation 4. And it's not about limited quantities either, because those people could just go and easily pre-order one. The pre-order should be high. It's some people that's canceling their pre-orders if they had one because they're not seeing any games. That's why people was talking about that indie situation. Why is it so many indies? Where's the AAA games? Because Infamous Second Son, Killzone Shadowfall is not doing it for them. Last generation, we had a separation of some of the best games where they were only Japan only. That's the thing that's missing, man. Japanese developed games for a Japanese developed console. Or its origin is Japanese. The PlayStation brand is a Japanese brand. Just like Nintendo is a Japanese brand. There's nothing wrong with that either. But the bulk of the games should be Japanese. Because they are doing some of the most innovative stuff. 7th generation, they tried to say Japan should be more like the Western developers. Japanese developers should be more like the Western developers. They need to make games like the Western developers. That goes back to me saying you're getting the same experience on different consoles. Keep different consoles, you're getting the same experience. It's supposed to be different consoles, a different experience. The experience you got on PlayStation wasn't the experience you got on Nintendo 64. The experience you got on Nintendo GameCube wasn't the experience you got on PlayStation 2. That's a good thing. That made a console, a rival console, desirable. And something to talk about amongst those who only played specific consoles. So a PlayStation fan could talk to a Nintendo fan, and they could talk about the different experiences they were having on the different consoles. You can't have that type of discussion now. What you gonna say? Metal Gear Solid, which was a PlayStation exclusive. Yo, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, man. I already know. I played it. Oh, that's right. I forgot it was on your console too, man. Nah, they want to talk about texture resolutions. Frames per second. Once again, this goes back to the PC joint. That's stuff PC gamers talk about. Resolution, graphics. That's never a concern to a gamer. I don't care about graphics. I don't care about frames per second. For example, Dark Souls. It's points in Dark Souls where the game actually slows down. And it is a frame per second issue, or a frame rate issue. For a brief a few seconds, like I said, it's a little annoying, but I don't care. I just try to get past that spot as quick as possible. Have I ever cared about graphics? No. If a game is presented as a graphics type of game, for example, Heavy Rain, then I feel it should deliver on that. And Heavy Rain delivered on that. Graphically, it was crazy. But that doesn't make the game. Like, they're not understanding. And this is all a part of the console wars because, like I said, it comes down to the game. The most important aspect of a game is the gameplay mechanics. Without that, there is no game. A game could look, the 4K, people was talking about that now. A game could look as realistic as they could make it. The 4K resolution. Let's just say a game is 4K. If the gameplay mechanics are not fine-tuned, they're not fluid, the game is trash. Automatically. The only thing you can say is, oh, it looks pretty. That's it. Gaming is a technical venture. Essentially, it comes down to the mechanics of the game. How well does that translate to the gamer being able to play the game? Is the movement of the game fluid? Is it too loose? Can you observe the game as a gamer and tell these things? Most can't. For example, Resident Evil 6. A lot of people are saying, you haven't played it yet. You haven't played it yet. It doesn't matter. I don't need to play it. Looking at the demo of Resident Evil 6, I could tell it was a terrible game, man. The mechanics were... You could look and see that the mechanics were not what they should have been. That's a different story, though. That's another topic. As a long-time gamer, you should develop these type of skills. Skills of observation. That's the main reason that publishers wanted to ban their games being played. Because you could look at a game and say, nah. The mechanics don't look right, or this game is trash. Like, the game is trash from the gameplay mechanics. Is people that look at games and say, oh, I see screen tearing. That's skills of observation. But on to my second point, because I dragged on with that. The second problem that arises with the term console wars is the term of fanboy. Now, let's look at the definition of fanboy. First off, its first known use was in 1919. That's a long time ago. Its definition is a boy who is an enthusiastic devotee, as in the case of comics or movies. Now, does that definition fit the term fanboy today? I don't think so. Let's take a look at the first part of fanboy, which is fan. Definition: a fan, sometimes also called aficionado, fanny, or supporter, is a person who is enthusiastically devoted to something, such as a band, a sports team, or entertainer collectively. Fans of a particular thing or person constitute its fan base or fandom. They may show their enthusiasm by being members of a fan club, holding or participating in fan conventions, creating fanzines, writing fan mail, or by promoting the object of their interest and attention. Now, somebody will argue, hey, it says a person who is enthusiastic, devoted to something such as a band. That's the same thing the fanboy said, enthusiastic devotee. No. Further into this definition, fans of a particular thing or person constitute its fan base. Fan base, they may show their enthusiasm by being members of a fan club. That's something that requires organization. Remember what I told you before, like the term that you're looking for, which I'm about to get to. These people don't question anything. They're not organized. They don't think. They just follow the brand unconditionally. That's not a fan. A fan thinks. They step back and question things. They look at things from a logical perspective. It's like a fan of Dragon Ball can talk with another fan of Dragon Ball about something logically. Fan club requires organization, holding or participating in fan conventions. Fan conventions require organization. Creating fanzines, organization. The term that really defines these people that don't question anything about their video game console brand or is a zealot. Let's look at his definition. A person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of their ideals. That's the definition that fits these people that just go along with anything their video game, you could say video game console brand presents to them. For example, the people, and people might be tired of hearing it, but it's true. The topic is console wars, the truth. The people that were willing to accept Microsoft's policies regarding Xbox One. I don't care that it's been done to death or not, because the fact is, these people still would have bought the Xbox One had the policies remained in place. How is that even possible? You have a corporation of a console that's basically going to dictate how you play your video games. Where's the fun in that? You can't possibly have fun with that type of, with those type of rules set in place. Yet no, they weren't even questioning it. They was just gonna accept it. I'm not one of those people, man. Like I said, for PlayStation 4, I have problems with PlayStation 4. And I'm not the only one. Like, the transition from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 was, at first it seemed like it was going to be incredible. But then after a while, once the information started coming about PlayStation 4, you realize it wasn't as incredible as it seemed to be. You have people on PlayStation 4s right now, they anti-PlayStation 4. I'm not entirely against PlayStation 4 because I do like a couple of the features that it has. But as a whole, no, man. Like, the lack of MP3 playback, the lack of video playback, the fact that they're charging for you to listen to their library of music as opposed to your own. And you can argue it's not important to gaming because you don't need those things to game. But the fact that the PlayStation 3 had it and the PlayStation 4 doesn't is backwards, right? It's a lot of things. The controller too. I'm not in favor of that controller. Mainly because Mark Cerny came out and said that the controller was specifically made for gamers who play first-person shooters. The problem with that is it shows a lack of respect for PlayStation's core gamers, because speaking as one of the core gamers, we would never concern with first-person shooters at all. In the 5th and 6th generation, if somebody had came and said, where can I find first-person shooters, they would have been exiled from that gaming era. The core gamers would have looked at them like they were crazy. Period. It's not to say first-person shooters weren't on PlayStation and PlayStation 2, because we definitely know they were on PlayStation 2, Killzone, but that was first party. And they were not at the forefront of gaming. If we take a look at the 5th and 6th generation, this is what the 5th and 6th generation looks like, or looked like, past tense. A variety of games. No two games were alike. A lot of people try to say JRPGs are cliche. They're generic. JRPGs are generic games, or is a generic genre. I challenge anybody to go back in time and look at the JRPGs in the 5th and 6th generation and name two that played exactly the same. Anybody. From the PlayStation era, or as far as PlayStation go, in the 5th and 6th generation, there's not a single JRPG that I played that played exactly the same. Each one was creative and innovative in its own way, and they all played different. You can't say the same about first-person shooters. First-person shooters are never going to be innovative. It is the same exact cycle over and over. Shoot, reload, shoot, reload. The only thing first-person shooter gamers get in a new version of the first-person shooter game that they play is new weapons, new guns. Somebody's gonna come and say Titanfall, Xbox One, that's innovative, that's creative. No, it's not. At its core, it's still shoot, reload, shoot, reload. Switch weapons. And then somebody will say the mech, that makes it creative. No, it doesn't. That mech is basically a vehicle. It's a vehicle. It's the equivalent of a Call of Duty gamer or player of Call of Duty saying, I can get in the tank and shoot the tank. That's something different. Or just recently, I think, was it the Call of Duty Ghost? They could go to space. You could go to space. That's not creative or innovative, man. It's not. At its core, you're in space shooting and reloading. First-person shooters are never gonna change, and it is popular among casual gamers. And right now, the whole dynamic is this gigantic shift. You could say it's seismic. In that first-person shooters, the entire genre, was more popular on Xbox. This is fact. Xbox was the first-person shooter console. Because like I just said, in the 5th and 6th generation, PlayStation was never about first-person shooters. And it's crazy seeing this change because it means that the experience is going to change for PlayStation. So as a core PlayStation gamer, I don't like this direction. But as a core PlayStation gamer, I am in the minority. Just like my fellow PlayStation core gamers. And they are out there. You'll see it during this broadcast with the visuals. Where I'm not alone in disliking the PlayStation 4 controller. It is not the DualShock controller as far as I'm concerned. Because they go on to say, Sony goes on record to say that historically the controller was complained about that it wasn't ideal for first-person shooter games. So right then and there, I had to stop and double check that. He said historically, meaning past tense, history. Like I just said a few minutes ago, in the 5th and 6th generation, PlayStation core gamers weren't playing first-person shooters. They would, like I said, they would have laughed at somebody who said, "Where can I find a first-person shooter game?" We weren't playing first-person shooters. We were playing JRPGs. And it's crazy because Sony knows this. I'm about to play an audio clip that basically he knows the PlayStation Foundation. He knows PlayStation's foundation. So for him to go against it, it's crazy. But for him to say historically, that's false. We weren't talking about PlayStation or the DualShock 3. We needed the DualShock 3 to be ideal for first-person shooters. That's history. The correct term Or what he should have said was in recent years, because it basically occurred during the 7th generation, where, like I said, you had the Xbox 360 game lineup started to slow down. So you had Xbox 360 gamers come into PlayStation. And that goes back to me saying, like, pick the console that you feel you'll get the best experience from. That's the experience you want. And that includes the entire that includes the console and the controller all together. Not just the games. Something you feel comfortable with playing, because that causes problems for the core gamers of that console. Because that's basically what the result of the PlayStation 4's controller changing into what it has become now. Which is what Cerny said. It was made specifically for gamers of first-person shooters. The core PlayStation gamer is not happy with that. At all. And you will see the visuals for this. Like, I'm not making this up. That's what it comes down to. So for him to say that, like, we never complained about the DualShock 3 not being it was comfortable. As one of these quotes that you'll see says, the PlayStation 3 controller was completely versatile. It was good for sports, platform, any type of genre. And that's what this comes down to. By Cerny coming out and saying that it was made specifically for gamers of first-person shooters, he is showing a lack of respect or disrespecting core PlayStation gamers who play other types of genres. People tried to argue, like, even though it's made for it was specifically designed for first-person shooter games, it doesn't take away from you being able to play other types of game genres. That's not the point. The point is, they're showing more favor towards one specific genre over the others. And at this point, it's evident why. But before I continue with that, let me go ahead and play what Cerny knows is the PlayStation's foundation ever since the 5th generation. So let's listen. He was asked a question. I guess it was a user submitted question, vlog or whatever. And this particular question, he was asked when he's not working on, or when he's not working, and he's in, quote, gaming mode, what type of game genre does he play? Or just games in general. And this is what he said. Let's listen.
As a gamer, I have a weakness for JRPGs.
Okay. You heard that. Crystal clear. As a gamer, he has a weakness for JRPGs. Why am I not surprised? JRPGs were one of the foundations of PlayStation. It was at the forefront of PlayStation. Now, a while ago, I showed you what the 5th and 6th generation looked like. In contrast, this is what the 7th, previous generation, and now the current 8th generation looks like. See the difference? First-person shooters have dominated the 7th generation, and now they are dominating once again the 8th generation. They are at the forefront of gaming. If you want a JRPG, you have to go searching for it. It's no longer advertised to you. You have to go find one. So if you're looking for the original experience that was offered in the 5th and 6th generation, you have to go look for it. When in the 5th and 6th generation, it was presented to you. It was advertised to you. At no point in the 5th and 6th generation did I see a commercial for a first-person shooter for PlayStation. Not once. 5th generation, I saw commercials for Tekken, Legend of Dragoon, Final Fantasy VIII. PlayStation 2, commercials for Devil May Cry, Onimusha, Okami. That's changed now. You look around on the internet, the number one genre that's promoted is first-person shooters. And now with this, like I said, with this seismic shift, the Call of Duty developers have shifted from Xbox to PlayStation. PlayStation is now the lead platform for the Call of Duty first-person shooter genre, period. Because Call of Duty pretty much sums up the first-person shooter genre. So if PlayStation is the lead platform, that means that PlayStation is now the first-person shooter genre console. As a core PlayStation gamer, it's like, what? Like, that's the type of reaction that core PlayStation gamers are having to that. The controller is blatant. Like, it's blatant disrespect. Because, like I just said, that one quote that says the PS3 controller was versatile. It's crazy. If it was versatile, that means that it worked with all game genres. There was no one specific genre that the DualShock ever favored. Ever. Whereas now, the PlayStation 4 controller favors one specific genre. So that means it's tailor-made for that specific genre. They claim that it's the greatest controller ever made. Yet you have people modifying the controller, like the guy that first did streams with the PlayStation 4 and got famous because Adam Boyes, whatever. I don't care that I don't get his name right, because right now what Sony is doing is crazy. He called in and asked the guy why did he. The guy basically took out the analog sticks of the DualShock 4 because he said they were uncomfortable, and he replaced them with the DualShock 3's analog sticks. So the Adam Boyes guy called in and asked him why he changed it, because it's like now the PlayStation division, even if this guy was with them in the 5th and 6th generation, he should know what PlayStation stood for then is what they need to stand for now. So for him to call in, he thought, like most people around the world, just because Cerny has said, it's in one of those article quotes or the article excerpts, that the feedback he got about the controller was great. and it was a tough audience or whatever. Why didn't they approach PlayStation core gamers for feedback? Because we are the ones that supported y'all in the 5th and 6th generation. Even though we're a minority now, we still matter. You know, that's still money in your pocket if we buy your console. Money or not money in your pocket if we don't buy your console. They act like we don't matter. When, if not for us, they wouldn't be where they at now. And that speaks on a lot of fronts all around gaming in general. Whether it be a specific game such as in the case of Bayonetta 2, which that's another topic. I'll talk about that when I talk about the Resident Evil 7 when I address those questions that surround Resident Evil 7. But yeah, you know, it's just crazy. So he couldn't believe that this guy had removed the analog and replaced it with DualShock 3 because the PlayStation 4 controller was supposed to be so much more superior than the DualShock 3, or more comfortable, as many people claimed. But like a lot of these comments say, some people, I mean, not to be offensive, but if you're not active as a gamer, meaning physically, like exercise or whatever, you could be overweight. And a lot of people were saying, like, some of these people are overweight and their hands are too big, they can't grab the controller, so they was complaining that the controller was too small. Which I've seen a few videos that meet that description. Because, you know, the person says they can't hold the controller because their hands are so fat. That's not saying all gamers, because it's a lot of gamers that are active, they exercise and whatnot. I play with people. If people want to talk about height and what that's relative to hand size, I've played with fellow PlayStation gamers that are 6 feet or better, and not once have they complained about the DualShock controller. Not once. And some of these comments will say that same thing. None of my friends complained about the DualShock controller. It's like I said, and it's not just that. You had people, like I said, when the Xbox 360 game started to slow down, or even before then, you had those people coming over to PlayStation and the controller was not comfortable to them. Because why? That's not the experience you wanted. You wanted to play the console, but that's not the experience you wanted. And so these same people went and complained to Sony. But for Sony to just say historically, that's just a blatant lie. In recent years, that would have been a better way to say that. Because historically, you make it seem like ever since the 5th generation, when that's not the case. The high-selling games in the 5th and 6th generation were not first-person shooters. They were not. Because first-person shooters, the genre, was on the PC. That was the popular genre on the PC. But when the 7th generation came, and these developers saw that Japanese developers couldn't develop for the PlayStation 3 like they were doing with PlayStation and PlayStation 2, they wanted that spot. And they pretty much got it. Because first-person shooter, the genre, basically took over the video game console. And that's what the landscape is currently now. The 7th, 8th generation, I just showed you what it looks like. This is what it looks like again. If you want to find a genre that you as a PlayStation core gamer want to play, you have to search for it. Because they're not presenting that to you anymore. And it all goes back to this is another aspect of the console wars. For your specific brand that you support, you need to question the brand. Look at what it offers to you. Is it really worth your money? As a PlayStation core gamer, PlayStation 4 is not worth my money. It's just like I said, you got those anti-PS4 core gamers that speak out because the experience is not there that they are used to. And it's really sad that, like, yo, we want different experiences from the different consoles. We don't want the same experience. So with all these multi-platform games being on all of the consoles, all different consoles, every gamer is getting the same experience. There's no difference in experience among different consoles. You're getting the same experience on a different console. That's crazy. Aside from first parties, which I just said, with the exception of Nintendo. First party games are not equal to third party exclusives from the 5th and 6th generation. Period. The reason I say Nintendo's are the exception because first party wise, that's the biggest draw. Like, you know, they don't really third party wise. I mean, they did get third party exclusives with the Wii U, or not the Wii U, but the Wii. They do have one with the Wii U, which is Bayonetta 2. With the Wii, Nintendo GameCube, and Nintendo 64. The draw is first party games, Mario mainly. So all the Mario or Zelda games are going to be up the caliber because they got to meet the demands of the Nintendo fans. They got to keep their fans happy. And they stuck to that. They remain the most consistent. Can you imagine if Nintendo all of a sudden shifted its focus to first person shooters? PlayStation is a Japanese brand. Its focus should be Japanese games. Not Western. It's not saying that Western developed games can't be on the console. It's saying that the bulk of PlayStation's games should come from Japan. Period. Now you have a Western dominated genre because Japan is not into first person shooters at all. Even if some of the gamers over there in Japan play it, overall it is not widely accepted like it is here in North America. It's frowned upon in Japan, really. So it comes back to the same reason that PlayStation 3, the reason PlayStation 3 didn't live up to the PlayStation name is another topic I will cover in another episode. But it essentially comes down to the lack of the games that its previous generations offered as a brand, which is in the 5th and 6th generation. JRPGs, you just heard it from Cerny himself. As a gamer, he has a weakness for JRPGs, which means he favors JRPGs. JRPGs is his favorite game genre. I wouldn't expect it to be anything else since he worked on the original PlayStation. Worked on the original PlayStation 2. And note, he said JRPGs. If it's just RPG, there is a separation. There's a difference. RPG over here, 7th generation, they started calling them WRPGs or Western RPGs. But if it's just an RPG, it means Western. So, about to wrap things up here. As far as the issue with the PlayStation 4 controller, if you are listening to this and you are one of those gamers that don't like the DS4 controller, there is actually a peripheral USB connector device called the Chronos Max, where you can plug in the DS3 into the back of it and hook it up to the PlayStation 4 if you do decide to get the PlayStation 4 and use the DualShock 3 on it. However, if the game utilizes that touchpad, then you're kind of out of luck. So you may have to use the PlayStation 4 controller. But if it doesn't require that touchpad, then you can just use the DS3. And also on that note, to wrap up real quick, remember when PlayStation 3's controller was first introduced, the boomerang joint. PlayStation core gamers came out and said, nah, we don't want that controller. It's garbage. Give us back the DS. Give us back the DualShock controller. Return the controller to like it was. So that just goes to show you right there. I don't know where those PlayStation core gamers are. We're a minority now. That's what it comes down to. Like, our voice is not heard like it used to be. So that finishes that up. Continuing with the questions. Now, the most important question for me comes down to the actual capabilities of the PlayStation 4. As I've already mentioned, as everybody already knows at this point, it's been probably the most talked about issue for the PS4, which is that it can't play MP3s, video, CDs, no DLNA streaming. Even though the so-called just straightforward gamers that all they care about is games say that stuff doesn't matter. But like I said originally, and this is for all consoles, they're called home entertainment video game consoles for a reason. Like I said, Nintendo got it right when they did it with the NES. Home entertainment video game console, a home entertainment console, home entertainment system. That's just, it's been a while, Nintendo fans, man, if you listening. But yeah, home entertainment is the key phrase here, or the key words here, which I already said, that encompasses music, video, photos. Yet the PS4 can't do it. CDs. The PS4 can't do it. You remember PS3's motto? It only does everything. And some people are joking about it. The PS4, its motto should be, it only does some things. Which is true. It's limited. But that aside, that's only one aspect of one of my issues with PlayStation 4. It really comes down, and people are speaking about it. You'll see it in some of the quotes, that the reason they did it, they wanted to charge people money. You know, everybody at this point knows that Sony is in a tight situation as a corporation. So they were trying to get all the revenue they could. And by eliminating your ability to play your own music on PlayStation 4 or play your own videos, they could get you to subscribe to their services, which is Music Unlimited and Video Unlimited, in order to draw revenue streams from that. They started charging for online, which is some core PlayStation gamers complaining about that, because that was an attraction for PlayStation 3, that you could play online for free. So they took a lot of steps backwards with PlayStation 4. And again, this is a PlayStation gamer questioning the brand. I had no problem with him charging for online. Like I said, yo, you know, I give him that. But once the realization came that they were charging for the music playback, which one of these quotes will say that they don't have the music that they listen to, because they listen to foreign music. That's an issue. But like I said, that's only one aspect. The real issue at the forefront is PS4 is praised as in succession to the PlayStation 3, is praised as being, quote, 10 times more powerful than PlayStation 3. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. Mark Cerny, as much as I like him, it's like 50-50 with me and Mark Cerny. I like him because he's a gamer, and he worked with Sega and Sonic. He knows games. He knows the foundation of PlayStation. But at the same time, it's like, for him to come out and design a controller that was specifically tailored to first-person shooter gamers, to come out and say historically they've had requests or complaints that the DualShock was not ideal for first-person shooter games. I'm at odds with them. The same way I'm at odds with PlayStation as a whole, as far as the 8th generation goes. But basically it comes down to this. If PS4 is 10 times more powerful than PlayStation 3, why isn't PS4 backwards compatible? And I guarantee you, only a few owners of PlayStation 4 have asked this. Only a few. Those that don't own it are the ones asking it the most. It's a valid question. PlayStation 2 was backwards compatible in its full capacity. It could play PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 1 games. PS3 originally was not backwards compatible. The 80 gigabyte allowed for that though. All 3 generations, you could play PlayStation 3 games, PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 1 games. At least in some iteration, the PlayStation 3 was able to do it. PlayStation 4 is not able to do it at all. It can't play back PlayStation 3 games which are on Blu-ray. PlayStation 4 games are on Blu-ray. It doesn't play CDs. One of the most basic media formats in the world. They can't at least play PlayStation 1 games? Nope. It only plays PlayStation 4 games. Yet the PS4 is 10 times more powerful than PlayStation 3. And there's PlayStation owners out there that actually believe that. Yeah, PlayStation 4 is 10 times more powerful than PlayStation 3. When it's not. Let's get into it. Why is the PlayStation 4 not backwards compatible? That's the question right here. They say the first reason is heat. Well, this is a former developer from Rare. And some people will say it's outside. He works for Xbox, or it's outside. It doesn't matter. If it ain't coming from inside Sony, it doesn't matter. No. The fact that it's not coming from inside Sony makes it matter all the more, because the sugarcoating stuff. If Sony just said historically, they had complaints about the DualShock controller not being ideal for first-person shooter games. That's sugarcoated to make it seem longer than it really was. It was in recent years, the 7th generation. They don't want to admit that. So the reason this developer, former Rare developer, gives the first reason for why the PS4 isn't backwards compatible is heat. Which I have no problem with that. I mean, it makes sense. And all the extra stuff would have cost, and the PS4's cost would have went up. Because originally, a lot of people think, what is it, $399. That would have been the out of box. No, if backwards compatibility, touchscreen, which they should have went with. That's something else I'll touch on. I know I kind of said I'm done with the controller, but they should have went with that, because the feedback that they got from the developers was cool. I think that was cool on Sony's part to go out there and ask the developers of games to give their input on what they would like to see in the next PlayStation console. I think it should have stopped there, because the fact that they allowed them to just give feedback on the entire thing, including the controller, made that situation a mess, because these developers said that they didn't want gamers looking down at a touch screen, which would have been cool. That would have been super futuristic. A touch screen and a controller? Come on, how cool is that, man? There wouldn't have been a need for the share options button, so they wouldn't have had to widen the controller like they did. And I'm thinking something along the lines of the VMU for the Dreamcast controller. For example, NFL 2K, when you played it, these developers made it seem like you would just be staring at the touchscreen the entire time you play the game. Just aspects to the touchscreen. We all want to play video games on the TV. We don't want to play inside a touchscreen. That's what handhelds are for. Come on. Developers, they wasn't using logic for that. A touchpad is so I want to say 80s. It's not futuristic in any form. But for the VMU for Dreamcast, for NFL 2K, instead of making your plays on the screen for your opponent to see, you could select your plays in the VMU, and it would transfer from the VMU to the screen, and you would get back to football. They could have did the same thing. It was cutting cost. I'm not gonna say it was cutting corners. It was cutting costs, because a touchscreen controller, they're selling those PS4 controllers for what, $59.99? And one of the comments actually said that this person has both the DS3 and the PlayStation 4 controller, and they said that the PlayStation 4 controller feels cheap. It looks cheap. Just plain and simple. And then for all of the rubber grips that was falling off, some people's controller was actually breaking out of the box. But that's besides the point. A touchscreen controller would have cost more money, so it would have raised the price of the PS4. So I'm guessing that controller with a touchscreen would have cost maybe $89.99, maybe more. So $89.99 coupled with, if the PS4 had the chip in it to be backwards compatible, you're looking at another $5.99, $6.99 console launch. So I understand the first reason, right? Number two, software emulation. Once again, here's where it gets crazy. The PS4 is not able to replicate PS3's 6-core cell, how it processes the software. So that's a negative for the claim that it's 10 times more powerful than the PS3. But the most important reason why the PS4 isn't backwards compatible, and a contradiction to them saying that it's 10 times more powerful than the PlayStation 3, is performance headroom, which is, let's read it together. One last problem is that the PS4 would need to be significantly more powerful than PS3 to run a PS3 game. And while PlayStation 4 is powerful, it's not the quote 10 times more powerful this person, Hollis, estimates would be required. To emulate an old system software, hardware and software, you need a system which is significantly more powerful. This current generation is simply not that much more powerful than the last, especially in terms of general purpose compute. Moore's law is basically over for CPUs and has been for around 5 years. That means new machines do not have the power to emulate last generation software. Wow. Wow. It's an eye opener. But you'll still have PlayStation 4 zealots. I can say that because there are PlayStation zealots in denial. Or, just like, nah, that's not true. If PlayStation 4 was 10 times more powerful, 10 times more powerful, the cell was a powerful, I'm not even into specs like that. I could care less, but I do know that PlayStation 3's cell architecture is a powerful piece of hardware. Tech-wise. The proof is in the fact that developers couldn't develop for it. But Cerny says that, and it's a given, it's been shown, it's fact, that once you unlock the power of the cell, the result is great. This is games like Heavy Rain visually, since people want to talk about visuals, visually. And that's all PlayStation 4 has over PlayStation 3, is visuals, which are relevant to a core gamer. We only care about the gameplay mechanics. It's like I said, for Resident Evil 6. The gameplay mechanics for Resident Evil 6 were terrible. Period. I didn't play the entire game. I'm a Resident Evil fan, 1 through 5. But I did not get Resident Evil 6 because the gameplay mechanics were terrible. I played the demo. That's all I needed. The demo just reassured me that I was right from what I saw when I saw it demoed at the Capcom Unity event. So visually, I don't care about that. But for them to say that the PlayStation 4 was 10 times more powerful than PlayStation 3 is a blatant lie. It's people that actually believe it. I never for once believed that. 10 times more powerful? It should be able to do everything the PlayStation 3 can do, and then some, as one of those quotes says. Or maybe it's not in one of the quotes, but it's something I read where somebody said, I want the PlayStation 4 to do everything the PlayStation 3 does and more. 10 times more powerful should mean that it can play PlayStation 3 games. It can play PlayStation 2. No, I'm joking. PlayStation 2, that it requires that, the emotion engine type. No, I'm joking. So it should at least be able to play PlayStation 3 games and PlayStation 1 games. It can't do neither. They want to stream games to you. So this is me as a PlayStation fan questioning the brand that I like the most. Or the brand that I've supported since the 5th generation. So I'm not a zealot. I'm questioning things. If I was a zealot, I would have went out here and got a PlayStation 4. I would be one of those people saying, yeah, PlayStation 4 forever and all that. PlayStation 4 has not shown me as a PlayStation core gamer anything to make me say, yeah, I need to get that. If Shenmue the game comes, that would change my perspective slightly, but it still wouldn't be enough to make me just fully commit to the PlayStation 4. That's how it should be around the board for any, not just a PlayStation gamer, any gamer of a console. You should question your brand. And that's what this all comes down to. I'm wrapping this up. If you don't question your brand, they will do whatever they want. The proof was what Xbox tried to do to the Xbox supporters. This is politics. I never would have thought that gaming would become this political. Because if you go look up the term politics, it basically is this. What's happening in gaming right now. If you don't start thinking as a gamer, these corporations will control you. That's what they want to do. That was the whole thing with the DRM with Xbox. They wanted to control their user base entirely. So question your brand, man. Just because I'm a PlayStation gamer, I have respect for other gamers. That's the separation is that the experience, which it looks like that's coming to an end. So I only can speak from the 5th and 6th generation. And a little bit of the 7th, because PlayStation 3 did get some exclusives. But as a PlayStation only owner, because like I said, I've played other consoles. it's the experience. That's the reason that I've stuck with PlayStation this long. And it's the same for if I was to talk to a long-time Nintendo fan since the 5th generation, since Nintendo 64. They would say the same thing. Like, it's the experience. They could tell you the games that made them stick with Nintendo. Besides Mario, I mean, every Nintendo fan is gonna mention some version of a Mario game. I mean, that's a given. But like I said, man, the reason that I don't own a Nintendo is because, you know, Mario stopped appealing to me. Like, I don't, as far as me actually just, you know, being 100% behind Nintendo, I still would play a Mario game, Mario Party, Super Smash Bros, or, you know, Mario Kart. That's never going to change. It's always going to be some type of nostalgia there for me. But to own it, and nah, man, that's not me. I've been about from the 5th generation. Once I got accustomed to it, it's just like they said, like, Nintendo is more a family friendly console, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that. And PlayStation in the 5th and 6th generation was more for the hardcore gamer. You know, like, if you wanted to get graphic, you know, mature games, Nintendo's games were more E for everyone. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But it was just, you know, like I said, personal preference. No, I said the majority. I know that Nintendo, y'all got Resident Evil on the 64, and you had Resident Evil 0 and the remake on GameCube. And then you got 4 eventually when Shinji did the little back alley deal. That's another, you know, that's for Resident Evil, the Resident Evil topic. But like I said, in wrapping this up, man, question your brand. That's a part of the console wars. It's not just about, matter of fact, it's not about me being a PlayStation gamer, bashing a Nintendo gamer, or Nintendo only gamer. It's about you actually observing and understanding the transition between your favorite brand's console into that following generation. So from the 7th to 8th, observe what the newer console is offering versus your previous console. You got to compare the past to the present. And for all the multi-rival console owners out there that try to promote that if you don't own all consoles, you're not a real gamer, stop it. Because it's not true. It's called decision making. Like I said, or consumer buyer's decision. However you want to look at it. You make a decision and you stick with it. For that experience. It's only one model in the consumer buyer's decision. You pick a model and that's it, one model. It's not saying you can't own all 3 rival consoles. Just stop promoting that you need to own all 3 or you have to own all 3 to be considered a real gamer. That's not the case. You just have to play different types of games. Don't play one genre. And with that, I'm out of here. Peace.